As we narrow down the boat we want, we're going to be asking lots and lots of questions to lots of people. And a lot of those resources really aren't very helpful. When I ask about Beneteau, I'm going to get a bunch of people that hate Beneteaus, and they're all going to respond. And if any of them sailed a Beneteau, no, probably not. They've probably never been on one, but the same with Hunter, same with Catalina, same with you name it, Genoa. There's people that are going to badmouth every boat and give you the reasons why you shouldn't be buying those boats, and that's not really super helpful. So there are better resources, and I'm going to show you a couple of those here really quick. But certainly take a grain of salt, and it's good to reach out to folks, but with a grain of salt, understand where they're coming from. Maybe asking what type of boat do you now sail and what type of sailing do you do before you understand their responses. Because a guy that's sitting on a 27-foot boat that was built in 1964 is going to have a different opinion than a guy that is, or gal that is, sailing a 45-foot multi-hull catamaran. And he's sailing. And where are you sailing? So if you're sailing in the Baltics, or if you're sailing in the Pacific Ocean versus sailing near Jamaica or something like that, or out in Bermuda, where there's really shallow waters, and so consider that. If you're sailing in a bay, San Francisco Bay, you're going to look at maybe more of a racing boat if you want to do racing. So pick the people you're going to ask for responses from. So if they're in the circle of friends or sailors that you're going to be sailing with, they're probably going to give you better information than somebody that doesn't do the type of sailing you do. Let's get into looking at some of the particulars and how you can find out more information about the boat when you start to whittle that information down. All right. Now we've decided we're looking for a boat, and we kind of have an idea that maybe the size or the range, and we at least should know the usage. I'm going to buy a sailboat. I'm going to use it for some coastal cruising and some ocean passages, but mostly it's going to be coastal cruising in the ocean. And some important factors is I'm going to bring my family. So my wife and I are both going to go. We want to have another couple come with us if, at times. And then we want our kids to come and join us on the boat. So we need some space for that. We need comfort. So we need to be a comfortable boat to sit around on the deck, to sit around in the cockpit at night, and plenty of room downstairs to have some space. We're not talking an apartment, but it kind of moves away from, like what they call a blue water boat, or an older, vintage boat where everything's kind of cramped and it keeps you in place when you're walking below. We want a little bit more volume of space than that because of that comfort level we want when we're at anchor. And here's some ideas, and I'm going to show you a couple of resources that are really easy to get to kind of get an idea. Now, I'm familiar with a Beneteau 461. I had a 1998 Beneteau 461, and I found that to be a wonderfully comfortable boat to cruise on in the ocean, making passages. People would say that boat's a little much to handle in blue water, but because it's pretty lightweight. But it is pretty comfortable, and if you kind of know what you're doing, I think it's really well built. So I wouldn't say it's that. I loved it, and so using that as a gauge, I'm like, I'd be happy with anything that's close to that. Let's look. I'm going to turn you around here. Let's take a look at this, and this page is sailboatdata.com. Now, what we're looking at here is a screen, of course, or what boat do we have? We got a Beneteau 461. This is the one I know and I'm comfortable with. I've owned this boat for about 8 years. I'm not just going to run right out and buy it again because it doesn't have quite the comfort ratio or whatever you want to call that downstairs that I want. Anyway, but there's a lot of information here about the specs, but I want to have you cruise down a little bit farther, and this is Sailboat Calculations. Hopefully you can see that. And they've got some important figures here. So the displacement, and these are all calculations, your comfort formula, that's sort of your comfort ratio, and then capsize screening formula. So you could compare that with the boat you're looking at, because I know that's what I'm comfortable with, that I know that ratio there is probably something that I'm going to be comfortable with. And then you can look at overall displacement of the vessel, and I think I can get that if I go up above. We've got the LOA here, so I know how long is that boat at the water line. And I've got that figure here, LWL. And so 39.3, and then the beam of it is 13.95. So that's how wide I'm, and then the ballast here, 7,496 pounds. Now where your boat carries its weight is going to be important. Hello, there we are. Be important, but your ballast and then your displacement. So let's look at the displacement figure here. So here's our displacement, 20,000 pounds, and then the ballast at 7,400. Now let's look at a different boat. And this is something that's intrigued me, and it is a Hunter 45. And if I go to the Hunter 45 and I start looking at these figures, beam is 13.8. We're right there about the same. So I'm like, okay, this is great. It's a 45, not a 46. But the water line, 39.58, right about the same. So I know my hull speed is going to be about the same possibility. Okay, now let's look at displacement, 25,000 pounds. And my ballast is 10,000. So what does that mean? Well, I can tell you really quick that means that my comfort ratio is probably going to be similar or a little bit better with the Hunter than it was with the Beneteau. And its comfort ratio is 23 on the Beneteau and 28 on the Hunter. So yeah, I'm right. And then there's a capsize formula. Now, if you want to know what these things mean, you can go to the definition. So hop on over here, and this is going to give you a definition of these things. So the comfort ratio, it tells you what that ratio is calculated on. And there's a lot of information here, but it'll give you an idea that if it's 40 to 50, heavy weather blue water, heavy blue water boat, 20 to 30 coastal cruiser, and you've got, over 50 extremely heavy blue water boat. These are the definitions that they're using, and Europe uses these as well. The capsize screening formula, it'll explain that here to you, and it'll give you kind of an idea, of course, of what, the lower the number, the better. So if we were to look back at those two things, right, we have an idea of, how easily does that boat tend to go towards capsize versus going back over. Then let's see here. What else did we have here? Displacement, ballast. So displacement. So this gives us some other figures here. And then on ballast. So this is a great place to understand what those figures mean. We were going to look something up, weren't we? So that was going to be down here, and that was the capsize formula, screening formula, right? And 2.0 or less is good. And if we go to this is the Beneteau, I believe. Yeah, Beneteau. And it's 2.03. That's pretty good. It's right there at 2.0, 0.3, so, or 2.0, whatever. Anyways, so it's there within that. And if we go back to the Hunter, it's 1.89, so a bit better than the Beneteau. So I feel comfortable that looking at that Hunter, it's going to have the displacement characteristics, the handling characteristics, and the comfort characteristics that I want out of a boat. And then you will start looking into hull materials and things like that to kind of get an idea how well built it is. And I personally would like to have a production boat because there's support. Hunter, I can call today, I can get support. Beneteau, I can call today, I can get support about the boat. If there's information I'm not sure about, I can get a hold of them. Custom built boats, no. You're not going to get any support like that. There's a sailing community out there that will gladly help out with custom built boats, but That's not going to be corporate support. Yeah, just my opinion. Anyways, we'll get into some more of this, but that's sort of a great way to look at the information on a boat and give you an idea of what it all means. And there's definitions here available for you, and I think this is a great way. And this is kind of how I landed on about 3 different boats that I'm interested in buying. One of those, of course, I just showed you is the Hunter. I do love the Beneteau. Probably if I could find a Beneteau, I might be happy with that as well. But more to come.